Welcome, Hendre. It's a pleasure.
Oh,
It's a pleasure to have you here this evening. Unfortunately, last time we had a call and there was no time to go more in depth in what you said, and I thought it was quite interesting. So I believe it could be very good if we can just take it from there and just go. And before doing that, though, if you will, please introduce yourself, and then we'll go into the questions I have.
thanks, Davide. One, thank you for the opportunity to be here and us to talk. We've had so many fascinating conversations, and thank you for your help personally, also for me, just being a sounding board and then talking back with me as well. So I'm a leadership strategist, if you would. I help companies architect their leadership structure, and I help really on two fronts. I facilitate business strategy meetings, and there I'm not an advisor, I'm not a McKinsey type guy, but I'm a facilitator of their strategy meetings, helping them navigate usually unprecedented or uncharted waters. And obviously right now that's probably really going on in a big way. So sometimes the business strategy facilitating that, and sometimes the people strategy, right? And which leaders do they accentuate and where do they go? And I would say probably the skill that I employ the most is creating a framework for people to explore, plan, decide, and then act, right? And my job is to hold that framework so that they can figure out their stuff. And I do it across different corporate domains, whether it was live entertainment or media or technology. Ultimately, my job is to hold that framework and guide people through a process. And often, it's because the owner or the CEO doesn't want to drive the conversation and create a place of dominating the conversation. So I facilitate, and then it becomes a different conversation. So like that.
On one side, I asked you to introduce you, but I know you, and I realize, given the fact that we work together, and given the fact that I've met some of your clients, I mean, your work has been great. I mean, that I know personally on transformation, on understanding new things and transforming mindset. So it's kind of an honor to see you in this moment, because I believe there's so much that it's going on about, discovering own mindset, discovering our own limits, and discovering, things about ourselves that we didn't even realize before this point in time, this crisis. And crises usually bring up the surface, whatever has stopped us in time. So one thing I like to ask you, since you're in LA, I believe, what's going on there, and how is the perception of the coronavirus, of this crisis mainly, because it's not just a virus, but whatever is happening around it, So please give us, some kind of an overview about the situation.
LA is an interesting place. Like LA is a very spread out city, right? So it's not a condensed city into one place, right? In normal days on a Friday, it would take you from the south of LA, Orange County, to the north of LA. It would take you probably 3.5 or 4 hours to drive. You could probably make that drive right now in 35 minutes.
Wow.
Because there's no traffic or very little traffic on the freeway. I mean, if you Google LA traffic, then you'll see all these horrible pictures, right? And of stuck traffic. Part of the challenge of it being spread out is it doesn't have the same concentration of experience. So it'll have different experiences in different parts of the city. When you take a look at New York, it's a concentrated, much more dynamic experience. And I think, to me, it feels a little bit like that. If you take a look at Italy, it's a big country, but it's a smaller country, so it's a lot more condensed. And I think that there's things happening in certain regions. And so LA specifically has a kind of an overall picture, and a lot of people, when they think of LA, kind of think of the whole of California, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, that whole. So people think more in the California type style. And you have all kinds of different experiences here. So essential businesses in California are groceries stores, pharmacies, marijuana stores, and gun stores.
Right.
I mean, it's like really, it's a fascinating look into the human domain. One of the things that's interesting here is that the government, federal government in America, decided to send some support checks to people. Now, obviously, that only goes to American citizens. And so California has, I would say, I don't know that it's true, but I think they have the largest proportion of undocumented people who are from, from other countries and are here in the country undocumented. You could say illegals if you want, illegal immigrants, or however people word it or language it. But you have a lot of people who are not going to benefit from the government benefits that come out of this. And so, and there are also folks who are affected right away because the restaurants are closed, hotels are closed, all of those things. So there's a part here in the economy that's very, very challenging. And in the area that I live in, which is south of LA, it has a very large Asian population. So there's a lot of folks from Korea, a lot of folks from China, there's a lot of folks from Vietnam, and all kinds of different places. And I have a lot of friends in these communities, and it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of racism going on, right? People think it's an Asian virus or a Chinese virus, right? And so, a number of my friends have had incidents in the last week or so, at the store or somewhere where, they have felt either actually violently threatened or stuff like that. So, like you said, a crisis reveals, right? And it reveals all the best and the worst of people, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and it reveals some of this underlying stuff. So I think the virus over here is somewhat contained because it's spread out, and you can make sure that people kind of don't all get together in specific places. People can work from home, all that type of stuff. But the other viruses are creeping up: the racism virus, the fear virus, the it shouldn't be this way, anti-government, all that type of stuff. And it is revealing. And then, the challenge, of course, LA is an entertainment world, right? So you have this literally people clicking between news and just absolutely stupid TV that they shouldn't be watching in a good day, right? So it's like, it's kind of American.
One thing I wanted to say about what you're saying is that in Italy also at first, mainly in places like Prato, which is in Tuscany, has the biggest Chinese community. At first, everybody would kind of avoid the sushi bars, avoid all these Oriental people. Now, it seems like in Prato, for instance, there is not even one infected Chinese person, and it's the biggest community of Chinese in Italy, and they are distributing the masks to Italians. And so the perception went from these people brought the virus because they are dirty to let's try to do like they do, and it's very interesting because this is actually a transformation in the perception, in the prejudice, basically, because at this point in time we had a huge prejudice against Chinese up until the beginning of this crisis, and then after the beginning we saw that they really did protect themselves very well, and we underestimated the thing. So people got infected, and none of the Chinese community got infected. So that was kind of interesting to see on this side, But,
we'll see, David, on this side. I mean, that's an amazing story, and I'm so happy for that transformation to happen. I mean, ultimately, the key here is for people to be in service of one another, no matter what race, background, or whatever it is. Let's help each other, right? We're in this together. The virus doesn't discriminate, right? What's interesting here is that the first responders, many of the medical community, whether they're doctors, nurses, or staff, I want to make a prediction. I have no data on this, but my experience tells me that at least 30 to 40% of the people who work in hospitals in LA are all Asian, right? They're all, so you might, that person who's getting annoyed with the Asian person in Costco is going to have to go, and their doctor, who's putting themselves at risk every day, every moment, will also be an Asian person. And I think, for me, I mean, it's painful to see my friends go through this, because obviously they didn't create this, and they're afraid, and I'm originally from South Africa. So, the impact of the pandemic, and then fearing for your own life because of the way you look, and then feeling like you have to protect your child from this, because it unfortunately it happened here in the States just this week, actually. A young man in Texas went out, and he was 19 years old. He stabbed a family a woman and a young, I think a young boy of 6 and a toddler of 2 years old stabbed them because they were Chinese. And it's like, are you kidding me? You know, and so, listen, and unfortunately, the media will exploit something like that. I do know that for my friends, it's very real and it's a very real experience. And so I think we are, obviously in many ways we're behind Italy from the experience of what's happening and you guys hitting the apex and like that. I think we're just, you know, 2-3 weeks behind you guys with regards to that. Hopefully we get to see that same turnaround that you guys have had and realize we have to draw on all of the people that are here and be thankful for anybody who's willing to contribute to society.
But one thing that really intrigues me, you know, I know it's not a good thing, it's not something to look forward to, but one thing that intrigues me is that, you know, fear, it's expanding much faster than the coronavirus, and
Absolutely.
fear is producing division, you know, and the desire to find who's guilty, who's to be blamed, and who's to be punished for it, you know. And that's, to me, it's a human thing, but usually when that happens, the rage of people is directed onto people that don't have anything to do with what's going on, and this is one of those times. And you know, I don't know Americans very well, you know. I lived there in the past in LA, but long time ago. But one thing I know is that when something breaks loose in the States, it can be very dangerous, because what you said before, one of the things that it's a prime necessity is guns and arms. I wonder, you know, if people start to, I mean, is there a concern? Let me ask you, let me put it into a question. Is there a concern that people that bought arms and have arms will then eventually turn around and do something with it, you know, and it could break up into something pretty, you know, nasty? I mean, at least from our perspective, but you know, we are so far away, we don't even know what
Listen,
we're talking about.
you know, the reality is there's enough guns already sold in America that there's, for every human being in America, there are three guns, right? We're not talking about ammunition. We're just talking about the physical tool, right? You know, being Californian, I have to make a joke, which is inappropriate, but you know, you'd hope that they smoke enough marijuana that they don't use the gun, right? So that's the counter, because they're both essentials. Listen, that is an underlying thing, right? But you know, ultimately, the guns is not what kills people, right? It's people that use the guns that kill people, right? And so your challenge is, how do we, you and me and the other folks who are helping people navigate through this, how do we help people handle fear?
So how do you do that? How do you, when you find somebody that is in terror or fear or like you know, like really growing the problem in his mind even more than it is out there, you know, what do you do when that happens?
Well, you know, it's interesting because you said, you know, people go from fear to anger and anarchy and that type of thing. And why is that? Well, my thought around that is, fear makes us feel helpless, right? It feels like there's something bigger than me or something greater than me that is going to have control. And so I want to get away from that fear feeling. I want to get away from that feeling of being out of control or not having any type of resource. We don't want that feeling of not having some sense of resolve or agency to be able to do something. And so it's why we blame, it's why we accuse, and it's ultimately why people attack, right? Blaming, attacking, racism, all of those is a way to not have the feeling myself. I need to put it on somebody else. And so, you know, it's like anger. Anger is a secondary feeling. It's not a primary feeling, right? Anger is a feeling that comes after fear, right? So, and anger creates this illusion of power. I want to get away from this feeling of powerlessness. So I'm going to become angry, right? Because it gives me this illusion that I'm powerful. So part of our work is then to help people cope with fear, right? I said to somebody the other day, you know, right now it feels like everybody's holding their breath. Like, if I hold my breath long enough, this whole thing is going to go away. You know, and one of the interesting things when you don't hold your breath and you let your breath out, the surprise is that you don't die, right? You're like, okay, oh, there's more breath, there's more oxygen there, right? And so yeah, I think for me, one of the first things to do is help people understand that fear is normal and fear is okay. I can have fear. Is often fear is a good thing because it teaches me what not to do. So first in my mind, I gotta recognize fear is here and validate or allow it to be rather than try to get it away. I mean, allow the fear to be there, right? Breathe. Okay, I'm here, right? And then I think the next thing is the idea of focusing on others or trying to get away from this is actually a good response that your body is doing, right? Your body is trying to tell you, don't just focus on yourself, focus on others. Now, the challenge is that what we do is we blame and we accuse when what really is needed is we serve. If I can think about, okay, if I only stay on myself when fear is around and I'm afraid and I only think about myself, then that energy, when I turn it around and attack people, is not going to go good. So I need to manage the energy, and the way to manage the energy is to serve. One of the interesting things that's here is there's a lot of people who are afraid to go to the store, either because they have an immune disease and they can't go to the store and they're afraid of getting affected, or they're an older person, they don't have a car, or any of these things, right? And so what's amazing, just in my community where we live, there's people who've gone around and said, hey, and they put a little paper under the doors, like, if you need me to go to the store for you, please call my number. Be happy to go to the store for you. I'll come and clean your house, whatever, right? And at no cost. I saw something online in a community where people put up they would want put in your window. You could either put a green piece of paper, an orange piece of paper, or a red piece of paper. Green, I'm okay. Orange, I'm not okay, but I will be fine. Maybe I just need a little comfort. And red, I need help. And when you start seeing that, and you start seeing how people are actually serving each other and caring for each other, the way of dealing with fear first is to acknowledge, and then it's to disengage or detach from the fear. And a good way to detach from the fear is to be in service to others.
So basically, let me see if I can get this in a nutshell. The point is, when you concentrate on yourself and you're afraid, you amplify the fear. When you concentrate on how to help others, that takes the attention off of you and makes you a valuable contribution. And in doing so, you can get through your fear. Not the fear goes away, but you go through the fear and you become functional, and you become more. You get a handle on it, as you said before. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a great way to say it, David. Perhaps another way to say it is, fear is a huge amount of energy, right? It comes and you can feel it. I mean, I don't have hair, but the little hair I have on the back of my neck gets up, right? And you feel it. People tremble, right? So it's like an energy field. And so part of what you're trying to do is you're trying to neutralize all that energy. So how do I neutralize that energy? How do I get that energy from me, out of me, right, into something else? So people go attack, or they will blame, or they try to manage the energy. But if you serve, then you can take the energy field that fear is, and you can ground yourself or neutralize yourself. First, recognize that it is there, and then in service or in work, you can put that fear out of you.
So instead of maybe a good thing would be channel it rather than neutralize it, because you have that energy, you got to do something with it, and so the way to use it, rather than transform it into anger, would be transform it into service, into give yourself to somebody else that is in trouble or is in pain or whatever. I think that's a great practice.
No, that's a perfect word, to channel the fear, right? To channel the energy that fear produces into service.
Right. That's great. That sounds a great tip to give to people at this point in time, because I don't know, in Italy, the funny thing when you were talking is that now it's going around the mail to everybody that says don't open the door to people that are telling you that they're giving you the masks from the government because they're coming in and with arms and want to rob you. So in Italy, it's better not to open the door to people that tell you they want to help you, because at the end of the day, some of them just found a way to get into your house. So it's very interesting how you different areas perceive some of the things, and
yeah, well, it's similar here. You won't open the door. So part of the policy that they have here is that if they're going to do something, they will ring the bell, but they leave it at the door because people don't want to be in close proximity. So even if somebody goes to do shopping for them, they use gloves, they use everything, and then the idea is that if you take the groceries or anything inside, that you discard the bags, do everything, cleanse it even. So yes, I think there's a fear that comes, and part of the challenge is people just want to connect. They want to see each other. That's why people are out on the balcony singing, right? I think that's probably one of the hardest things for people is it's not the same. I mean, I'm glad to see your face, but I know what it's like if we're, in a restaurant together and we get to, have a glass of wine. It's a very different experience. And I think people are longing for that. They want that interaction.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it, because I'm Italian, as you know. I'm Italians, and then we got together. We had a drink together, so we understand what it is, and I miss that very much. And I think a lot of us miss that very much. And the connection, it's something that human beings are meant to be connected. So at the end of the day, that's kind of where we're at. But I really appreciate that, and I what I think is that. Maybe here, you said we've reached a peak, and I'm doubtful about it. I know the media are saying that, and the numbers are not growing as fast as they used to, but we're at 70 doctors that died. And, we don't really know what's going on because we're not going outside. So we're just drinking and looking what happens on TV. And so we don't really know for direct experience what's going on. So I understand that the news out in Italy since yesterday is that we're reaching the peak and we're going down. But as far as numbers, we're not going down clearly. So, there's not a clear trend yet. So, I hope that it's what you're saying. At the same time, I know that in the States it's the beginning, like we were in the beginning of March. So, I believe there is something to come that we will need to look at as it comes. And in fact, thank you for being with me today. And I want to request, if possible, to have another call maybe in a week or a week and a half, and just to see how things evolve, just how the situation brews and becomes a reality. Because, I really want to keep an eye on what's going on, not from the media perspective, but from people on the ground.
Yeah, well, I will tell you this, Davide, I agree with you. One, yes, I will happy to talk to you again. And I agree with you. I think we've hit apex 1, but not the final apex. We are not climbing a mountain. We are trekking through a series of mountains. And we've probably hit the first apex. And part of the new normal after this is that on the other side of this peak or this apex is not where we were. It's another horizon. And so, it's the first mountain to cover, and we're going to learn from that, and then we're going to have to normalize. Somebody yesterday said, we have to learn to go to business unusual, as opposed to back to business as usual. And part of our work is, in my work, and I believe your work, and part of what you're doing here is helping people relate to business unusual. From now on, we have to learn to normalize or embrace business unusual, and that's our new reality.
Yeah, and what I was thinking about is that in 10 years they will refer at the COVID-19 as the beginning of the new era, rather than as an event. And so I believe we are there at this point in time, and I'm glad to record these calls because I'm looking forward to look at these calls in 10 years from now and see where we were and where we have gone in those 10 years, because this is going to be an interesting ride. And I think the people that will be more flexible, agile, and ready to adjust will be the people that will conquer the new era. The people that want to go back to the business as usual, I don't know about that. I mean, I really feel for that. It's not going to happen. Yeah, yeah.
No, well, my dream is that in 10 years from now, you and I sit together and having a glass of wine in the same room looking at this video.
There you go. And we'll do another video then, and then we'll talk about this video. All right, man. Really,
right.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being generous with what you said. So, and I look forward to the next conversation we're gonna have.
Thank you, Davide.
Goodbye,
Ciao.
Hendre.